I first heard about this case the day that it happened. I think just about everyone in Mobile heard about it the day that it happened, just because of the nature of what had happened, who it was, and it was just a really scary incident for a lot of people.
Professor Matthew Weiser worked at the University of South Alabama as a professor in economics. He was supposed to just wake up on Wednesday, November 20th, like any other day. He was going to have an afternoon class around 1 o'clock, but he didn't show up.
It was kind of uncharacteristic of him not to show up for class, and so they started texting and calling him, and he wasn't responsive to anything. And so at that point in time, someone from the school asked campus police to go over there and check on him.
And they found that the back door of the location was open. And they immediately noticed that it wasn't just open like it was swung open. There's signs of forced entry.
Police!
When they made entry to clear the house, the University of South Alabama police officers located Mr. Weiser on the second floor in the hallway.
We got a body. Yes, sir.
He had what they believed may be foul play to his body.
Yep.
Because his residence was off campus, they deferred to the Mobile Police Department, and we responded to investigate. We ended up flipping Mr. Weiser over and saw the apparent bullet strike to his chest. And that was obviously the ultimate indicator that somebody had come into this home and did this to him.
When you're walking through a crime scene like this, you're looking for anything that may speak to the why. Okay, so why did this happen?
We obviously know at this point there was force, potentially a burglary. Anything that would have been the target of a robbery was still there in the home, really untouched.
He had a connection to the University of South Alabama. So that opens up a whole side of people that may be upset at him. You know, could it be a student? Could it be he was in a relationship with a student? Could it be a student didn't like a bad grade?
The day after Professor Weiser's murder, we received some anonymous information where this person had, or believed he had, some information related to Professor Weiser's death.
One student in my class said, I guarantee you student did it because the professor was not liked. And they pulled his Rate My Professors profile. That's where we go to rate all our professors, and his rating was low.
We felt like this is the angle that we needed to be going in, and then considering that this was a professor that we're dealing with, it wouldn't be unusual that a student is involved in his killing.
They looked at the Rate My Professor, they looked at cell phone messages, social media accounts, everything. And there really wasn't anyone with a clear motive.
I tried to piece it together, and really nothing made any sense. It just defied logic that, you know, somebody would actually come there and kill him.
This was the first case that we collected every electronic and did a full catalog of everything that he had ever purchased and compared it to the items that were inside of the house. The only thing that we found was missing was the Nintendo Switch. And so we were just like, okay, we'll take a shot in the dark. This Nintendo Switch is still missing. Let's try to figure out where it's at.
I subpoenaed Nintendo. I remember getting the email, opening the email, and I remember audibly just like yelling in the office, the Switch was powered on after the murder. It was amazing.
Weeks after Professor Weiser was murdered, this Nintendo Switch was connecting to an IP address. And it was associated with a residence that was at 900 Downtowner Boulevard, and it was associated with a woman by the name of Kenesha.
treating that young man.
When I interviewed Kenesha, I said, has anybody been to your apartment recently with a Nintendo Switch?
I mean, I have a brother. I think he may have been there, so I didn't know. And your brother's name is? Tequez. Tequez? Mm-hmm.
And I knew right then and there that Tequez was involved in my homicide. I knew it. I was able to find that he recently purchased a 2009 white Honda Accord, and I was able to find that he purchased it locally at kind of like a small car dealership. I thought, you know, it's possible. It's not likely, but it's possible he could have a GPS on that car.
That vehicle was equipped with real-time GPS, and it showed this vehicle that Tequez Timmons purchased was located on Crestwood Drive here in Mobile. They go to the house on Crestwood, and they take Tequez in for questioning, and they confront him with the Nintendo Switch.
Where'd you get it? Is it Cirque on overlooking University? Mm-hmm.
GPS does not show him at that Circle K when he said he got it.
The GPS had put his car right across the street from the crime, right around that time when they know he was killed.
The GPS was showing he wasn't there except at that time around 11:50. So I started to have this theory in my head that he was probably just the driver in all of this.
Tequez starts to realize, like, I've got myself in a situation, and without being cooperative with the police, he could potentially go down for murder. So what he decided to do is become a lot more transparent with the investigators about what had happened.
Yes.
And he admitted that he and two people had already been breaking into homes pretty regularly. Mr. Weiser was found not to have any sort of vehicle. It would be a good house to hit, you know, thinking nobody's home.
We still believe to this day that they did not enter into Professor Weiser's house with the intent to kill him. They went in there with the intent to burglarize his house, to steal his possessions, and they were armed when they did so, and they caused his death.
I remember calling Professor Weiser's dad and letting him know what we've accomplished.
It's always nice to know what happened. You know, I understand obviously lots of murders never get solved, and I can understand when they talk about bringing closure. To some extent, this does.